I just found out I'm having a girl. Congratulations. What can I do to raise her to think for herself and not fall into the modes of thinking proposed by popular culture? Well, you can let her think for herself when she's a kid. What you do is so that she practices doing that. And so that means to consciously encourage as much autonomy as possible. So how do you do that? Well, let's say she's a little kid, she's 3, and she starts to get interested in clothing. So you lay clothing out on the bed and you say, well, you can wear this or you can wear this. You let her make autonomous decisions. And with kids, you don't want to let them choose from an infinite menu. You want to give them a constrained menu. But what you want to do with your daughter is allow her to make as many decisions as she can possibly make as early as possible. And that doesn't mean that children always know what's best for themselves or any nonsense like that. It just means that you're going to encourage her autonomy in every measure that you can manage. And that means you're going to have to be brave and allow her to subject herself to a certain number of risks. So you raise her to think for herself by letting her think for herself. And that can start quite early. I would say when she's a teenager, she's going to fall into the modes of thinking proposed by popular culture because that's part of being enculturated and socialized. It's virtually inevitable, and it's even somewhat desirable. But what you hope is that you've encouraged the capacity for autonomous thinking to a sufficient degree that it's likely to integrate with that more intense teenage socialization and then reemerge, so you get someone who comes out the other side as an autonomous individual. And that works with boys and girls. So I guess you do what Geppetto did in Pinocchio. Is the first thing you decide is, well, you don't want to raise a puppet. You want to raise an autonomous person. And then you think through, well, what does it mean to be an autonomous person? What sort of person do you want your child to be? What sort of person do you want to encourage your child to be? And then having established that vision in mind, that's going to guide your choices. But at least you're making the right choices. You don't want someone who's dependent and whiny and cringy and more frightened than they need to be, and martyr-like and vengeful and malicious and manipulative and mendacious, all of those things. You want someone who can